Hi.
Hi everyone, we're back. It's been a while. Last time we recorded an update, we were in Idaho
Yup.
on the first leg of our trip. We're on the second leg, but we're going to talk about that later. Right now, we want to talk about the stuff we didn't talk about at the end of leg one.
Yup, which
And
was back in the end of June.
yeah, and we were at Beaver Creek, although we didn't talk about Beaver Creek, so we're going to talk
Yeah, I
about
think
Beaver
we had
Creek.
just gotten there.
Yeah, we had just
Yeah.
gotten there. I think if you remember correctly, we were going to go there for a hike. We found a sweet campground, went back, got the camper, set it up at this campground, and we were happy as clams. It's awesome.
Yep. And then we went on our hike the day after we got there.
Yeah, we finally went on
Yeah.
the hike, which was a really sweet hike. We went to an alpine lake called Langer
yeah.
Lake.
There was still some snow, some hard-packed snow. We had to use our crampons, but beautiful hike.
Yeah.
Some waterfalls up to this just pristine lake.
Still had a little ice around the edges.
Yeah.
We talked to a guy that was there for a couple of days camping, and he said it was iced over when he got there, but there was still some ice on the edges. Not enough for me not to slip my foot and a little bit of my leg in the cold water.
Yeah, luckily I had some dry socks for
Yeah.
him.
Just testing the grounds a little bit.
Saw lots of wildflowers while we were there.
Yeah, it's just fields and fields of wildflowers.
Yes,
Wow.
fuchsia and like purple, and yellow, I think. I don't know. We got some pictures. I'm sure Rob will throw them
Yeah.
up. And then also saw an eagle when
Yep.
we were there, and some military jets flew over.
Yeah, some low-flying
Very
jets.
loud.
It was crazy. Did some biking in the area. Went down to, I think, the town of Stanley Lake. Or not the town, but the area was Stanley Lake.
Yeah, I think
And
you're
there
right.
was a sweet trail around there that got some really good views of the Sawtooth Mountains there. Pretty sweet bike trail. Yeah, great views. Many people on the trail. So, didn't have to worry about passing anyone too fast because, how I like to go fast on the mountain bike. And from there, from Beaver Creek, we drove north to...
So it was getting hot.
Yeah, it was getting real hot. We drove to the Idaho-Montana border to a place called Twin Creek Campground, which was in the National Forest. And wow, it's like we stepped into a Dr. Seuss book there.
Yeah, it was crazy. There were these flowers. They're the flowers of Indian basket grass, which only blooms every 5 to 7 years. Sorry, bug. And the blooms get like this big, but it's like a cluster of 100 little tiny flowers, and they open up really weirdly. And
Yeah, they were
just
crazy.
they're like this tall off the ground. So I mean, it's and some even taller, but they
Yeah.
were everywhere. It was
It was
just
sweet.
felt like I was in the Lorax or something. It was crazy.
We also hiked a cool trail that went along, I believe it was along Twin Creek,
Yeah.
which was real awesome and very refreshing because it was a hot day.
Oh,
So
so hot.
we
We
dipped
actually
our
ended up,
bandanas in the
and our
creek
hats.
and our hats in the
Yeah,
creek
and my
soaked our
head.
heads.
Like, it was hot. But we were only there a couple days, and
Yep.
then we headed
And then we
north.
went into Montana.
Yeah, and
we went to another national forest area by Stevensville called the Gold Creek
yeah,
Campground.
which is south of Missoula.
Yep.
But nice area. Very
nice and secluded.
quiet campground. We were there over 4th of July.
Yeah, and we were the only ones there until like the weekend of the 4th, and then
Yeah.
it pretty much filled up.
Which was fine with us.
Yep.
It was crazy there. There were butterflies everywhere.
Yeah, that was cool.
And we went on some hikes and bike rides there also.
Tracie got some really good pictures of some cool birds.
Cedar
here's-
waxwing.
Here's one of them. Yep.
Yep.
And then you got this picture of this bird too. This was a sweet picture. I
That
love
was the
this one.
cedar waxwing. I only got one picture.
Oh, you got a couple pictures. We're
okay.
showing a
I
couple
don't
pictures.
remember, but okay.
And I was also, I don't remember if I talked about this crazy bird that I heard on our last video, but there was this bird, I swear it sounded like it was from Star Wars. We started hearing it in Idaho, and I could not find this thing. I tried to track it down, tried to record it. It seemed like everywhere we were by a roaring creek, so I couldn't get a good
Or windy.
recording of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, or it was windy. And this thing was following us to different parks. But here is the bird that we were hearing. And here is what it sounded like. What else? Oh,
Oh,
yeah, it was nice there because we were there for the 4th and we did not hear one firework. It was totally quiet, which was kind of a nice change.
yeah, and we did go into town because we had no service, which is frequently happening, which is fine with us. I know you guys worry, but we're okay. But we had to go into town to kind of research where we were going to go next. We found a little brewery, and we found this nice organic bakery that served lunch. So we got some sandwiches and went over to the brewery. But I was even more excited that they also had an organic farm, so they were selling farm fresh produce, which we have been having a hard time finding. There's food deserts all over. Even if we do find a grocery store, sometimes the produce is lacking or super expensive. So it was nice to find some farm fresh organic stuff. And when we left that campground, we actually stopped there and loaded up.
Yep.
And then moved on to our next destination.
Yeah, so from there we were going to go through Missoula, but we had a hard time finding any free camping there.
Yeah.
So we found this state highway that went pretty close to the next area we wanted to go through, and it was this crazy mountain pass.
I can't believe it's called a highway. It
Yeah.
was like a dirt road for a lot of it with the drop-offs, and I'm freaking out because
Yeah.
I'm afraid of heights.
And
And
some of it was like single lane road where you had to go through a narrow mountain
and
passageway.
we're pulling the
and
camper.
There was a
It's
cool
just-
waterfall at one point where
Yeah.
people stop and check it out.
I got
and we
some
saw that.
pictures.
Got some
of you.
pictures of that
Yeah.
one. But yeah, we made it through this mountain pass, which was kind of crazy, and then we drove to Georgetown Reservoir, which is a designated U.S. forest. But it was pretty crowded there. And
It was a nice developed campground, but yeah,
Yeah.
it was crowded, and we don't really care for those types. I mean, you're like right on top of each other.
And we didn't have, there wasn't any sun either for
Oh, yeah.
recharging the batteries. So we
Yeah.
just stayed there for a night. We did have internet access there, so we took the opportunity to do some research on the next campsites that we wanted to visit. And then from there, we drove to one of our favorite camping areas,
we found
which was by Bozeman, Montana. It's
Yep,
called the
south of
Highlight
Bozeman.
Canyon area, or recreation area, which is national.
beautiful,
Oh, it was
beautiful.
So
Oh.
we got there. It might have even been kind of late, but it started raining pretty hard. And there were only some designated campsites. There were some campgrounds that were closed because they were short-staffed, and there were other reasons for some of these campgrounds being closed. And we drove through a couple of mountain roads, and we found a couple of sites that may have worked, but
They were just trashed.
they were trashed, and we
People
found
are so
abandoned
inconsiderate.
tents on some of these sites.
glass.
So we
Yeah,
ended up,
just-
we kept driving.
Yeah.
We drove past the reservoir, which was gorgeous. Drove through a big rainstorm, and then we pretty much exhausted everything there. Explored everything and didn't find anything. So we started to drive out, and we were going to go to another place. And then we ended up pulling into this camping area, which was like almost a campground or a parking lot. We decided to check it out because it looked like there was a site, and there was a site there. Didn't look very good, but we decided
Yeah.
to stay there for the night. But then as we explored it a little bit more, there was like this back area behind where the camper was that was awesome.
So many
Shaded and
wildflowers.
secluded. We had a place to set up the kitchen, so we ended up staying
Beautiful.
there a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I've never seen so many wild roses. It was
Oh, it was
insane.
sweet.
It smelled so good. And they were just, I mean, I will throw pictures up of that too. Just incredible. The lupine was in full bloom when
Oh,
we
yeah.
got there, and that was all over. And it like switched over the time we were there. From
Yeah, the blooms were changing
lupine
from
to,
the time we were
like
there.
by the time we
Time we
ended, left, all the lupine was gone, but there were all these white daisies and like weird thistle and just beautiful. And we went on a ton of hikes there to waterfalls.
Yeah, Palisade Falls was one of them. That
Yeah,
was sweet.
grotto. There was like grotto falls and
You could stand under the Palisade Falls,
yeah,
and
which we
basically
did.
you get sprayed with water, which
Um,
you're probably seeing a picture of right now. That was
yeah,
very refreshing.
and the reservoir, did we go swimming? We went swimming
We
once.
went swimming, yeah.
It wasn't ideal for swimming, but it's beautiful. I mean, if we
Yeah.
had kayaks, I would have been in
Oh,
heaven.
yeah,
It
that
was
would have been
just
awesome.
absolutely gorgeous. It was full moon when we were there, so one night we went to this big parking lot up at the reservoir and hung out and watched the full moon. And there were a bunch of like college kids there because there's fire pits all over.
Yeah.
So having fires and watching the full moon, and I don't know, it was cool. It's a cool area.
Very cool area. A lot of thunderstorms rolling through too.
Yeah.
Like almost every day in the late afternoon, a thunderstorm would roll through, and then it would clear up, and it would be clear until the next afternoon when another thunderstorm
Yeah.
would roll through.
And
So it's
when
kinda
when
cool.
we were there, Dave Wernette was in Big Sky working, and the kids were working at the resort that he's at. So we actually drove down there for
Yeah.
afternoon and evening. It was absolutely beautiful.
Yep, we saw Dave, Evan, Mia, and Zoe.
and
Visited with them and hung
Yeah.
out with Dave. Had dinner with him. Had some drinks with him. Hung out with him for quite a while.
yeah, it was good to see him because he's been gone out of Michigan for so long that it was just good to reconnect.
Yeah, did some sweet mountain biking in the Highlight Canyon area too.
Yeah.
There were some sweet meadows where I was biking through, and again, just wildflowers everywhere. And I was hearing the crazy bird again, trying to find it. And yeah, we spent a couple of weeks there, and then we took off and we went to Makoshika State Park.